Subscribe to the channel before we begin, because what you're about to hear challenges one of the most modern assumptions about land care. That compost must be piled, turned, monitored and managed like a project. For most of human history, composting didn't look like a heap at all. No bins, no thermometers, no weekly turning schedules. What replaced it was quieter, slower, and far more integrated into daily husbandry. Once I stopped composting the normal way and adopted this pileless method, the land began improving on its own terms. Why traditional compost piles are a modern solution to a modern problem is something rarely discussed. Compost heaps exist because modern life concentrates waste in one place while separating it from the land. Historically, people did not move fertility away from where it was needed. Food scraps, animal waste, bedding, ash and plant residue were returned directly to fields, paths, gardens and grazing edges. The goal was not to create compost, but to feed soil where it stood. The pileless method simply restores that logic. How pileless composting works in practice is straightforward but deeply rooted in older land systems. Instead of gathering organic matter into a heap, materials are placed directly onto or into the soil where fertility is desired. Decomposition happens in place, driven by soil organisms rather than heat generated by a pile. This is slower than hot composting, but it preserves nutrients, protects fungal networks, and requires almost no labour once established. Why soil biology prefers this method becomes obvious when you look at historical fields and forests. In nature, organic matter falls where it grows. Leaves drop, animals defecate, plants die, and everything breaks down exactly where roots can reach it. Pileless composting mirrors this process. Fungi colonize first, pulling nutrients downward. Worms follow, dragging material into the soil. Bacteria finish the work. Nothing is exposed, nothing is wasted, and nothing needs turning. One of the simplest pileless methods is surface layering, which has been used for centuries in gardens and animal areas. Food scraps, weeds, straw, manure and paper fibres are spread thinly across soil and covered with dry material. This can be done weekly or daily. In historical households, kitchen waste was often tossed behind the dwelling or along garden edges, where it vanished into the ground without smell or pests because it was always covered. Another ancient approach is shallow trench composting, commonly used in intensive food plots. A shallow trench is opened, organic waste is placed inside, and soil is returned on top. Crops are planted nearby or directly above after a short waiting period. This method was favoured because nutrients stayed underground, protected from animals and weather. In practice, you can dig a trench between rows, add scraps and manure, cover it, and rotate planting areas as decomposition progresses. In animal husbandry, pileless composting often happened underfoot. Deep bedding systems in barns and shelters allowed manure and plant material to compost slowly where animals lived. Layers of straw or leaves absorbed waste, and over time the lower layers transformed into rich soil. Once removed, it was already stable, mature compost without ever having been piled or turned. This same principle can be applied today in chicken runs, goat shelters, or livestock pens. One of the greatest strengths of this method, you see, is how it reduces work while, at the same time, improving soil quality. Traditional compost piles, well, they require a careful balance, moisture control, plenty of space, and of course, a good deal of time. Pileless composting, on the other hand, just asks for placement and a bit of patience. Since decomposition happens right in contact with the soil, nutrients are absorbed rather than leaching away. There's no nitrogen lost from overheating, and those vital fungal strands, so essential for long-term soil structure, remain undisturbed. Now, a practical example for a small homestead might be, say, dealing with kitchen scraps. Instead of lugging them off to a bin, they're simply buried in a rotating series of shallow holes along the edge of the garden. Each hole is covered up completely, and then the next one starts a few feet away. Over the course of a season, the whole area becomes darker, looser, and honestly more fertile. No pile ever forms, and well, there's never any finished compost to move about. For larger land areas, surface composting combined with mulch works exceptionally well. Manure spread thinly over pasture and followed with straw or grass clippings feeds soil organisms without burning plants. This mirrors historical grazing systems where animals fertilized land directly and vegetation recovered naturally. Over time, soil organic matter increases without machinery or inputs. The key rule that makes pileless composting succeed is coverage. Organic matter must never be left exposed. Historically, waste was always mixed with soil, bedding or plant debris. This prevents odour, discourages pests and controls moisture. If something smells or attracts scavengers, it simply needs more cover. What makes this method so powerful is that it restores composting to its original role. Compost is not a product you make and move. It is a process that happens everywhere life touches the soil. Once you stop separating waste from land, fertility becomes continuous instead of seasonal. If this kind of historically grounded, practical husbandry knowledge resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who still thinks compost must live in a pile. These older methods endure because they work quietly, efficiently, and in harmony with the land.